Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com from County San Francisco, and we're going to be making some Irish stew, lamb stew. Really super, extremely simple recipe. And we're going to start with some lamb shoulder chops, which I think make a great, and by great I mean the best, lamb stew. You see they have a little piece of the shoulder blade in there. They might have some of the arm bone, which gives you some nice marrow. So I had 3 pounds, which is like 6 big thick chops. I'm going to season that with salt and pepper on both sides. The nice thing about shoulder chops, they tend to be the least expensive lamb and one of the most flavorful cuts. So it works on many levels. Now, step 1 here, we're going to brown these in a really heavy-bottomed frying pan here, skillet. I'm going to use a little bit of vegetable oil, and I'm going to do mine in batches. I had 6, so I'm going to do 4 and then 2. Don't crowd your pans. And I'm really going to have that on high heat. I want a nice brown crust. I don't care if the bottom of the pan gets really dark. You're going to see it's going to get really dark, but it's okay. All right, we're going to brown those on both sides, and I'm going to transfer them in to this stock pot that I'm going to simmer the stew in. All right, so I'm going to do the other 2. After those 2 are cooked, I'm going to throw in a chopped onion with a big pinch of salt. And you can see how dark, almost black, the bottom is getting. That's okay. A lot of these recipes call for dark beer as part of the liquid. I don't like using beer in my recipe. So I'm going to get the dark color from this fond at the bottom of the pan, the burned on meat juices. Now at this point I usually add a tablespoon of butter. I already had some melted brown butter I used for another recipe, so I just threw that in. But here's where you want to just throw in a hunk of butter. I'm going to dump in some flour, and I'm just going to toss the flour for like 1 minute just to coat the onions. Then I'm going to dump in my stock. And do not worry about the dark pan. It's going to color the sauce. There's not going to be any off flavor. You don't want to burn the flour, because that will taste burnt. But browned, really dark bits of onion and pan juices are not going to hurt anything. Okay, so I'm using chicken stock here. You can use beef if you want. So I put in about 3 cups of stock, bring it to a boil, and it's going to start to thicken up a little bit. And the only herb I use is just a little pinch of rosemary, dry rosemary. Irish stew really doesn't have a lot of seasonings in it, a lot of different spices. It's pretty straightforward, which is why it's so delicious. Nothing to screw it up. All right, I have some carrots and celery just in large chunks. I'm going to add that. All right, that's looking good. So when that comes to a boil, you can pour it over your meat and vegetable mixture, but you want the liquid to at least come up to the top. All right, so I was just a little shy, so I added a little more water. I mean, a wee bit more water. I'm going to bring that up to a simmer on low heat. I'm going to simmer that for an hour and a half. In the meantime, I'm going to get the last ingredient ready, which are some little baby potatoes, little Dutch potatoes. Check it out. It says they're good for everything except stew. That's okay. It'll work. All right, I washed those, and I left them whole because they were so small. A couple of the bigger ones I cut in half. All right, after an hour and a half, the lamb is almost fallen off the bone, but it's not quite totally falling off the bone. I'm going to pull it out of there. I'm going to add my potatoes in, give it a stir. Then I'm going to put the meat back on top and finish the cooking. Okay, so that's going to go about another half hour, 40 minutes until the potatoes are totally tender, till the lamb is just literally falling off the bone. So leave it on low heat, cover it back up, and then check in about a half hour. It might need a half hour, it might need 45 minutes. You know, you figure it out. And there you go. There's what we're talking about. See, the meat is just literally falling off the bone, super tender. Now, I'm going to fish out the meat, put it on a plate, because I want to kind of pull the bones out of there just to make it easier to eat. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to turn my liquid, this juice, this sauce, up to high heat and bring it to a boil. And on as high heat as you can go, as rapid a boil as you can go, you want to reduce this and it's going to thicken up beautifully. Now, very important, you have to skim off the fat at this point, otherwise it will boil into the sauce and emulsify. You don't want that much fat in there. So skim that off. The meat now is cool enough to handle. It sat on a plate for about 10 minutes. I'm going to pull out the big bones, any big chunks of fat. Look at that little rib. So cute. It's a wee riblet. All right, so I'm going to leave the bones in that. It's kind of nice for presentation. You see how beautifully that's reduced? That boiled for about 10-12 minutes. I'm going to stir in the lamb meat. Unbelievably delicious. I wish you could smell this. So amazing. All right, I'm going to finish this with a little handful of green onions. Give it a little nice color, a little fresh onion flavor at the end. And that is done. Delicious, simple, homey, comforting Irish stew. So for St. Patrick's Day, if you don't do the corned beef thing, do the Irish stew thing. And by the way, why are we only eating this delicious food once a year? Come on, make these Irish American delicacies all year round. They're so good. And speaking of corned beef, I got an email from someone saying, I wish you would have had some authentic music for your video. So I hope you enjoy the Irish folk music in this one. Go to the site, get the ingredients, they're all there. And as always, enjoy.